The following program is brought to you by the Baker & Baker Foundation and is a production of the Columbia Museum of Art.
Hi, and welcome to the More Than Rhythm podcast. I'm Dr. Birgitta Johnson, host and ethnomusicologist. Hello and welcome back to Binder Podcast special episode celebrating the CMA's More Than Rhythm, a Black music series hosted by Dr. Birgitta Johnson. I'm Dr. Johnson and I'm very excited about today's episode. This month we'll be celebrating the past, present, and futures of soul music. In this series, so far we've covered a lot of ground in Black music and Black artists' contributions to music around the world. But one genre has stood out as a cornerstone in Black music because of its tie to so many threads in African Americans' journeys of self-determination, liberation, and human rights. And that is soul music. From the Black is Beautiful movement to the Black arts movement, the Black awareness movements, and the Black power movements of the 1960s and 70s, soul music is the sonic representation of the will of Black people to define themselves for themselves unapologetically, and to affirm themselves while pushing for advancement in civil rights. Soul music was and is the musical well people continue to draw from as a resource, in addition to being responsible for some of the greatest popular music America has produced. So with such a rich history, some may question, where's soul music today? Where's soul music going? These are some things that people asked during the 1990s and the early 2000s when neo-soul made waves and extended the legacies of Ray Charles, James Brown, and Aretha Franklin to Erykah Badu, D'Angelo, Jill Scott, and others. But as we move further into the 21st century, we at More Than Rhythm contend that the South, just like soul music, has still got something to say. More Than Rhythm is very excited to welcome the Sea Island songbird and high priestess of funky organic soul, Mahoganëë Xperience. Mahoganëë Xperience is a Gullah Geechee multidisciplinary artist. She's a vocalist, storyteller, poet, arts advocate, and educator. If womanism had a soundtrack, then she would be the featured artist. Born in Summerton, South Carolina, and reborn in St. Helena Island, where she is based, Mahoganëë is a fiercely original artist with the ability to passionately interpret the musical greats from Nina Simone to Natalie Cole. She's a talented trustee for the arts past, present, and future generations, mixing Southern, Caribbean, and African sounds and textures. Known as the Sea Island Songbird, she is also part of the 2023 TEDx Charleston class of creatives and speakers. She and her producer husband, Andre Xperience, are both certified teaching artists and founded Responsible Artistry Incorporated to provide mentorship camps, workshops, residencies, and classes driven to foster leadership skills, self-awareness, and self-reflection through music art therapy. They are current recipients of the 4.0 Fellowship for Educators and Curriculum Innovators. Through music, poetry, dance, and visual arts, the Mahoganëë Xperience takes you on a global journey through space and time with her funky organic soul as a soundtrack. Mahoganëë traces her roots to the original Gullah Geechee corridor, and her indigenous soul music celebrates resilience and commemorates the arrival of the first enslaved Africans to the United States. Her performance for the More Than Rhythm stage will include a live band led by TJ Ling with visual designs by Renee Gibbons, and will include original music from her recent album, Textures of a Southern Soul Volume 1, and reimaginings of soul hits by Marvin Gaye and Nina Simone.
Ooh.
You see how I did it, huh? I told you I was going to bring you in like Steve Harvey. So, hey.
Okay.
We got to do it. Welcome to More Than Rhythm.
Wow.
Yeah, and so I really want to just jump right into the conversation because you are just an awesome artist. And so I want to, of course, we're going to talk about soul a little bit, but I also want to get into all the other things you do because you are one of our multi-hyphenate artists. And so my first, question, I always start with this in most of our podcast episodes is, what are your earliest memories of soul music as a distinct genre?
Wow. So my first, and I'm not sure if these are soul artists.
Go for it.
But I'm going to share who really inspired me. I would start with Donny Hathaway.
Soul, yes.
Yes.
Brother
and
Soul.
Of course, Roberta Flack.
Mm-hmm.
And Anita Baker.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Are my top three. And I always say that they were my vocal teachers because I would listen to them and just harmonize instinctively. There were no, music teachers in my class or at my school. I never took chorus. It was just all going by instinct. Mm-hmm. And so listening to them, that's how I began my journey in the sound that I've arrived to today. Because I feel like I've finally met myself.
I love it. And even when we think about Roberta Flack as actually a teacher, a music teacher and educator. And so even as a great composer, her soul music was so musical, if that makes sense, right? You got so much of the basics of music and harmony and rhythm and how to do it. I just saw her documentary that came on a couple of days ago, and Peabo Bryson was like, she taught me how to really duet for real, as opposed to just, it's just competing. She's like, she really taught me how to do a proper duet. So even her music and her catalog is a lesson in itself. So I love that. Those are, you ask, are those soul? They are soul. You can't beat that. That's soul on soul, In this case, 2 generations of soul, as we see. Yeah. Anita Baker still with us, and she's trying to go back on tour. I said, wait a minute, Anita, okay. She went to Vegas and got recharged, and we love it.
Yes, we love it. That's my husband's cougar.
You know what?
Anita Baker.
Hey, everybody has somebody. My dad is a Gladys Knight fan, and my mom likes to remind us of that. That's your girlfriend. I was like, I'm pretty sure Gladys Knight is not his girlfriend, but okay, yes, we'll go with it.
Birds flying high, you know how I feel. Sun in the sky, you know how I feel. Breeze drifting on by, you know how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life for me, and I'm feeling good. Birds flying high.
More Than Rhythm, we're thinking about our series. We've been very fortunate to feature artists from various parts of South Carolina. And mind you, that was not our plan. We're just trying to find great artists that represented different facets of Black music. And we just keep happening to find all these wonderful artists from the state. And also, we've been fortunate and blessed to be able to feature artists from the historic Lowcountry region. Once again, it was not planned. We just,
right.
Thank you, Instagram and Google. We just kept finding people. And it just so happened to come from right in this, rich area of our state and our country. And for me, I think about the Lowcountry specifically. A lot of the story of America comes through that region. People don't think about it that way. They think about, Plymouth Rock and the Northeast, but it's a major corridor to and from the United States, and it touches to the Caribbean as well as South America and Africa. You see this kind of triangular movement that comes through the Lowcountry that people don't talk about as much. And so what I love about your music is that it touches those roots, and I mean all of them. It touches the South, the Lowcountry Gullah Geechee cultures, the Caribbean, and I think about songs from your album like Dance With Me and Casa del Rio. From your most recent project, we must say your project is right. Textures of a Southern Soul, Volume 1. Can you share a little bit about how you meld and weave these influences together and still keep it chill and funky?
So I think the interesting part about this album, in 2019, I went to Cuba and also Belize. And so my husband also has Jamaican roots. Mm-hmm. And as of maybe a year or so, finding out that he also has a Liberian roots and also being in this area. So if I walk out my back door, I can smell the water. right? I can hear the water. And it is my personal belief that the energy of the water and of our ancestors actually is all in the lyrics of this album. There are actually some lyrics, and I was talking to someone and I said, these are memories that I don't even have. You know, so where would these memories actually come from if not from our ancestors? And so that's how deeply rooted, you know, the land and the water and everything is in the lyrics. Because it's not just me. It is the land. It is the water. It is all of that. It just all fell together, you know, at the right time. The stars aligned.
Right. I love how you call your sound funky organic soul, because it's still very earthy, very organic in a contemporary type of way. And all these diaspora influences is kind of where we are. I know in my field, we talk about the so-called global South. And Black people in America have represented the global South like forever, basically. These connections between the Caribbean, South America, and Africa. And it's to see a lot of music. I remember on one of your songs, actually several of your songs, I hear clave. And I actually brought my clave, but I forgot to take it out the bag. And so I was just listening. I was like, she has clave in here and she's like doing it right. People stick in a clave and I want that Latin feel, and the clave is just backwards. Like, as my old teacher, Francisco Agobea, said, you can't go against the clave. It has to meld with other things.
Right.
And so as I listened, I was like, oh no, the congas are lined up with the clave perfectly. The bass is doing what it's supposed to do. I said, this is how it's supposed to go. But it sounded very soulful and very acoustic at the same time. So I was like, okay, they're not just slapdashing stuff together. This is a sonic kind of resonance of all these types of Afro-diasporic things, and they're put together very thoughtfully. And it's still like you can just put it on and have a good time. And of course, the lyrics are there. And I'm going towards the lyrics right now. You're a poet and a singer. And once again, More the Rhythm, we keep finding these poet singers. Not playing, just come to find out you guys also write poetry. So as a poet singer, but also as an educator and community activist, when I listen to your songs like Snap, Indigo Bluesology, as well as Songbird Affirmation, it is very clear that a lot of your music is not only for the soul, but it's also for the mind and the emotions. How have you been able to extend your music into these spaces for education and outreach? You know,
that also happened very organically. My mother was, at the time when she was doing it, I didn't think of the word as a community activist, but she helped start the Grandparents in School program in my hometown. And she was just always supporting other people. And I feel like it was just a natural progression, you know, with her DNA and also me seeing her do it. And also with my husband's background, we're not educators, you know, in the traditional sense, but it was like, we just kind of felt like if you have it, then you share it. Right. You know, again, it's a natural thing. And going into the schools, it wasn't planned. We just volunteered with friends, you know, people that we knew. We reached across, and instead of trying to reach up or, you know, outward, it was our friends, the people that we knew, and they reached out to us. And so it just organically grew into the nonprofit that we now have. And it still feels right. So again, organically a part of the journey.
Hey y'all, Producer Drew here with Nicole Morgan, the Chief Development Officer at the Columbia Museum of Art. Can you hear those birds chirping out there?
So many birds. I woke up this morning and it sounded like birds were descending upon my yard and my house. It was fantastic.
Well, yeah, because it's finally spring in Columbia.
It is spring. The world is waking up. We can put away the jackets, the heavy sweaters, and we can lean into all things floral.
That's right. One of my favorite parts of spring is that the whole city becomes covered in flowers. And it's not just outside in our yards or in our parks, but it's right here in the museum. Isn't that right?
It is. It is here in the museum. We are thrilled for the third year in a row to celebrate Art Blossoms, a floral exhibition that will take over the museum. We partner with the garden clubs across the Midlands to design floral installations that reflect the artwork that you see on a daily basis here at the Columbia Museum of Art. And best of all, it's a fundraiser to help us open our doors to more people than ever before. At the Columbia Museum of Art, we believe in being playful. We believe in having fun. We want you to be engaged. We want you to learn a little bit. And so all of our events that are planned throughout this fantastic 4 days will help you to do all of those things. We'll start with tours with our executive director. We also are bringing back our well-loved Roses and Rosé. We also this year are introducing Gin Blossoms. If you are not a drinker, that's okay. We have a non-alcoholic version of gin that we'll be including for this evening. So this is really an event for everyone.
Yeah, and this is just a little taste of all that you can experience at Art Blossoms. I mean, these events are filling up super fast. So if you're listening right now, go ahead and pause the podcast and check us out at columbiamuseum.org and reserve your spot. And then come back, listen to the rest, and enjoy Art Blossoms when it returns this Mother's Day weekend, May 11th through the 14th.
Come see us. It'll be a great time.
Hey, Wilson Boehm here to give you even more Than Rhythm programming. On July 23rd, we close out our second season with Grammy Award-winning, 2-time Emmy Award nominee, and 2020 United States Artist Fellow Dom Flemons. Flemons will join Dr. Birgitta Johnson to discuss his passion for storytelling through old-time music, his experiences with the award-winning Carolina Chocolate Drops, and his current projects that champion the Black contributions to American folk music, before he takes the stage to perform a set of tunes spanning over a century of early American popular music. For more information about More Than Rhythm, or any of the CMA's programs or exhibitions, please visit our website, www.columbiamuseum.org. And we'll see you at the next concert.
I hear the Lowcountry island breeze, yeah. As it whispers to the sea, I feel the dirt underneath my feet. Oh, as the land says, please be good to me. Oh, oh, Auntie Anne says, slow down and breathe. Oh, oh, Uncle Pete says, will you dance with me? Oh, oh, Mama Nature says, I've done the best I can. Father Sky says, rest and come take my hand. Oh,
I wanted to go back to these song lyrics. Snap is one of the ones I think about because, you know, it's very laid back, but then you get into the lyrics and I just want to snap my fingers and be in another world.
Yeah.
I think of some of your lyrics, it's almost like mantras. When you say, there's a place where I can go in this world where I can feel safe in just being a Black girl.
Yeah.
So it's like Hey, that's where we are now. And as I'm also an educator, and I think about our students, particularly younger students, are very thoughtful. A lot of times they're very in touch with their feelings, and they're dealing with the world that's not used to young people having feelings and talking about them. And so songs like Songbird Affirmation, where you literally say at the top of the song, hey, how's your soul feeling today?
Yeah.
You're inviting the listeners to kind of think about feelings, And I think that's a part of what soul is doing today. I'm thinking of a TikTok artist or independent artist. He's actually very popular on TikTok, Maniko, and her song, King's Affirmation. I'm like, we out here doing affirmations and trying to reach people with the soul. And so when people think about this kind of traditional take on soul music, like your Aretha's and James Brown and these kind of Black anthems, I think contemporary soul is really talking about the inward parts. The original soul, pioneers were talking about affirming yourself and actually literally defining yourself and being proud of yourself, your Black body, your hair, your skin color. And now I think soul artists are looking at what's beneath that what's going on with the soul, within soul, and having actual songs, having these songs that do that. I like that. And I'm seeing that more and more. And it's a representation I know a lot more people are looking for. And so I'm just happy to kind of shout some of these lyrics out and talk about those as well. There's another new notch on your schedule as well. You are also now the current class of TEDx Charleston.
Yes.
Yay! Can you talk about that? Because everybody can't be TEDx. And so you have brought, Organik Soul to TEDx. What's going on with that?
I actually had no idea that TEDx actually seeked out and allowed performers on their stages. And from what I'm just finding out, they seek performers that are part of the theme, the current theme that they have. And this one is, I believe it's called Reemerge. And again, someone submitted me.
Yes. I can see that.
And that is actually how I, got to find out about it. And so it's a lot bigger than I even, realized that it was. The potential to be like really, really powerful, with the audience that you can attract. Right. And so we're going to be at the Charleston Music Hall. Like, yes. Yeah, we are really, really excited about that. And we're going to do, well, maybe I shouldn't say what we're going to do.
I mean, you can keep it. I mean, we can break some news here at the Binder Podcast. We don't mind,
So we're definitely going to do 1619.
Okay, go ahead on.
Yes. And there is a new song that we worked on. It is about the power of the water between worlds, between nations. And so I'm really, really excited about that one.
Yes. My favorite part of the Lowcountry artist scene, you guys do not forget about the earth, the water, nature. You guys keep it center. We had Benny Starr on a couple of episodes before, and he talks about the land. And I remember seeing one of your music videos in the open fields.
Yes.
You do a lot of visuals. And so this was a project, and I saw Felicia Rashad being involved, and you guys created a song for that. So I love this kind of full circle music, community, land, nature, the environment, in a way that's not the, cliche climate change type conversations. You guys are really getting down to what has historically grounded this region. And it's interesting. And it kind of leads me to my next thought about visuals. Because once again, even though this is a podcast and our audience cannot see, I want to talk to you about the visuals. Besides your fashion and just how you show up. And once again, people, I invite you to see Mahoganëë's IG. She's stunning. Everything is beautiful. And beyond her fashion, also, I noticed you like incorporating photography and film into your music. And so it's not just a typical, structure-centric images of like plantations, and you really get out there with your imagery. So you have these historic nods to like these historic places and spaces, but it's a nod also to kind of Afrofuturism. Can you talk a little bit about more some visuals and how they're connected to your soul music?
Well, I've always been a visual, in my own appearance. And with the power that's in our hands with the cell phone, there's really no excuse. You don't have to go out and buy an expensive camera anymore. And so I feel like I have a Walt Disney type of, just, driving down the road, somebody that might just see a tree, but, I see, other things and I see the film and I see the lyrics, of what it can be. And just taking that, and it just feels, again, like a natural part of what should go with the music. And I live in this world. It's not like I have to go on vacation, or take a trip. It's actually all the footage that you see is where I actually live. So it's my reality. And I'm also creating some visual art that I'm excited to, be debuting as well. And I'm just happy to be in this mindset, where I'm at right now with the music and the visuals and actually feeling good about the work that I'm creating.
I love it.
It feels amazing,
I love it. When I watch it, I look at it because it puts me in the mind. Sometimes when we think about artists who loved incorporating visuals in the visual story, I think about people like Janelle Monáe, even Beyonce. The idea of when I do the music, I'm already thinking about the visuals. What's the visual going to look like, and how people will see what they hear.
Where the pecan trees grow, the palmetto sways to and fro, where the moss is hanging low, memories of Christ in the door.
We've already talked a little bit about the Mahoganëë Xperience, as it sometimes is known. It's also a duo. Between yourself and your husband, producer, Andre Amager, Mr. Bounceback. And so I want to talk about the role of collaboration in your career as this multifaceted artist with Andre, as well as, you've worked with people like Renee Givens, and I think she's going to be kind of working with us as well at the concert. So how do you see collaboration in your art and your music?
It's so necessary to really, take it out of what is in your mind. And when other people come that are visionaries as well, it makes it bigger than, what one person can do. And visually with Renee, I mean, this is her life. She does events, weddings, editorial. And actually one of the shows that she worked on was nominated for an Emmy last year. So she is extremely good at what she does. So she and I will talk about it, and then she makes it happen.
Right.
But with my husband, we're talking about a spiritual connection, which is why this album, Textures of a Southern Soul, came out the way that it did. And I remember saying to one of my mentors, I failed in the first 3 albums to get to the right album. And they said, no, it wasn't a failure. It was just a growth. And with my husband, when we initially met, we didn't know that the other person was a musician.
Okay.
And, just after conversations and I'm like, well, where are you at? And he's at the studio. I'm like, the studio? Like,
he's like, exactly. Like the studio?
Yes, exactly. And he did me the same way. And we actually recorded our first song together within the first, I think, 3 to 6 months of knowing each other. We both had a sister that died from drug abuse. And that was the first song that we wrote about. It was about them. And that was in 2001. And so it's been a journey of over 20 years, of melding, our energies together. And with him having 3 strokes, right? And out of the last stroke, it was more mental than it was physical. And that's when we realized what synesthesia was, right? He always had these different visuals and visions since he was a child, but never put a name to it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Didn't know what to call it. And I think all of those things aligning came together for this album, which is, when you talk about the instruments being, married together perfectly. That's why, because he's never had any, kind of education as far as, instrumentation.
Right. It's like formal training. Yeah.
Right. No formal training. It just all, again, happens naturally and organically and spiritually.
Okay. So let me tell you, just in case you don't know, we got that funky, funky, funky organic soul, going through muddy waters, getting that Carolina hues. Now you got that low country funk all over you. And if you think you can walk a mile in my blues, well, you don't know my melody, 'cause it ain't meant for you. Now you may call
One of the early records I saw of yours was the Collard Green Crown album. Was one of your older ones. But when I saw the cover art, I said, that looks like Natalie Days' work.
Yes.
And then I read to the bottom, I was like, that is Natalie Days' work. And so just like this layering of wonderful artists from the region. And of course, she's an educator, actress in her own right. Can't remember who knows Gullah Island. I feel like that's a millennial thing, because that was right behind me.
Right.
So I never grew up watching it, but I think my sister's generation did. And seeing her as this wonderful visual artist.
Yeah.
People know her from television, but her works, her pieces, they look real.
Yeah.
And so she creates all these textures with something that's very much quintessential to Southern living, to Southern experiences. And I know your music also talks about food quite a bit and like how great that is. And so I just love hearing the imagery. I remember one of your songs, and I'm going to quote it right now. I think this is from the Casa del Rio song you mentioned, where the pecan trees grow. And my aunt for the longest time, actually in both of her houses, her first two houses that I remember growing up in, she had these huge, we talk about, almost 100 years old pecan trees, and we would go out and, pick them and get some extra money or whatever, or the ones she would already have, we would crack them. And you have lyrics talking about the palmetto sways to and fro. So I was like, okay, now we're not in Georgia, we're in South Carolina, because that's where the palmetto sways to and fro. And just these kind of memories of rice and indigo. I can literally teach a history of South Carolina class in the first verse. It just is just wonderful how you capture it in the lyrics, but also you can see it. Because like, if you come into the Columbia airport, the palmetto trees are right there waiting on you. They're right there waiting for you. You travel through the state, all these things are there. So I love how it's soul music, it's contemporary soul music, but it still has a heart for where it's coming from, the Southern existence that sometimes we don't really think about. We think about Atlanta and we think about, Birmingham and those places. But oftentimes people kind of forget about, the Carolinas, basically.
Yeah.
And definitely as more and more people are learning about the Gullah Geechee culture, that's there too. Even how you talk about cosmology and nature and Mother Nature saying this and peace is saying that. So I love those aspects of your lyrics. And I guess my next question would be, what can guests expect to see when they come to see the Mahoganëë Xperience at the CMAs in a couple of days?
What I'm really excited about for this show is, this will be the first time I'm having all of the experience together.
I love it.
Right? Especially working with the set designer, Renee Givens.
Mm-hmm.
She's going to help me bring in, the indigo and the Carolina gold rice, and, and the palmetto trees and the water. And you'll get to see and hear, the music. And I think that's what I'm most excited about, bringing that together and with a live band.
So right now, I want to take this opportunity to thank these phenomenal musicians that accompanied us today. We got TJ on bass. TJ, you want to give him a little something?
Well, thank you so much for talking with us today. This has been wonderful. You are part of our second season of the More Than Rhythm series, and we are here for a whole month of soul music. And so you're kicking us off with this wonderful concert, and we'll be doing film screenings and other things, but this is our live set. So thank you so much for coming, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to it.
So, on keys, we got Cameron. Cameron, you want to give him a little something? Thank you, Cameron. So on drums, we got Clifford. You gonna give him a little something, Clifford? And most importantly, all of the original music that you've heard tonight was composed, created, came out of the beautiful mind of my husband, who is a 3-time stroke survivor, which is why we call him Mr. Bounce Back. Thank you, Mr. Bounce Back. We love you. And I also want to thank Dr. Birgitta for giving me this phenomenal opportunity.
The More Than Rhythm podcast is a production of the Columbia Museum of Art. Recording and editing by Drew Barron. Additional recording support by Victor Johnson and Matt Buck. Today's episode was hosted by Dr. Birgitta Johnson. And today's guest was Mahoganëë, whose group, the Mahoganëë Xperience, you heard throughout the episode. Additional production for this series is done by me, Wilson Boehm. Funding for this series is made possible by the Baker & Baker Foundation. And this program is supported by a Connected Communities grant from Central Carolina Community Foundation. This program has been made possible in part by CMA Affinity Group Friends of African American Art and Culture and the National Endowment for the Humanities, Democracy Demands Wisdom. Thanks for listening, and see you next time.
Woo! We did that. We did that, right? Okay.